Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. The Prime Minister said that he deeply regrets saying that Britain risks becoming an island of strangers because of mass immigration, admitting that it was, quote, not right to use that particular phrase. He said neither he nor his speechwriters had been aware that the remarks could have been interpreted as an echo of the language of Enoch Powell in his infamous Rivers of Blood speech. Joining me now is the director and founder of the Academy of Ideas, Baroness Claire Fox. Welcome. Baroness, what do you think is behind this mea culpa?
There's so many attacks on free speech. It does seem a bit odd to come on and talk about the fact that the Prime Minister has cancelled himself. But that's effectively what he's done. I mean, he gave a speech which I thought was an important speech that acknowledged the concerns of millions of people about the problem of too much in relation to immigration, the kind of distrust that had been sown, and so on. And actually, there was one poetic moment in which he referenced the problem of feeling as though you would live on an island of strangers, because he was talking about if the rules continue to be broken, people will just feel alienated in their own country. And I think we all recognise that. There's then a backlash, and any of the audience will know, anyone who's watching at home or here in the studio, that when they turn on you, it's pretty vicious, right? So there's like that old saying, Enoch Powell, you are a racist, and all the rest of it. And actually, it's usually Starmer saying that, so it was a bit unusual. But they were saying it to him. And he stuck with the speech. And then he is now, and I think it's disgraceful but insightful, that he's basically dobbed in his speechwriter by saying, oh, when I gave that speech, I hadn't really read it. In other words, he never wrote it. And then I kind of gave it, and I didn't really know what it meant. And obviously, the nation is thinking, well, don't give a speech that you haven't read, actually, that you haven't written, but that you don't know what it means, that you've got references in it. And I think that, in that sense, it's a real sign of the times, as we have a year of this new Labour government, that we can't believe anything they say, that it doesn't, it's skin deep, it's absolutely of no conviction.
Yeah, I mean, I thought when the speech came out, I didn't make that connection with Enoch Powell, and I thought, OK, he seems like he gets it. Like there is an issue here, and he seems to understand, and it was very different, of course, from what happened, the kind of rhetoric that he was putting out last summer. So it felt like, OK, maybe he's starting to see that the issue here isn't that most of the country are actually a big bunch of racists, but are concerned about uncontrolled migration in this country.
I think that what we can see here is that there is undoubtedly a group of people in Number 10, and the name that keeps being floated around is Morgan McSweeney, one of his advisors, who is trying to get the government to have a certain intuitive feel for the way that the country are tearing their hair out. And that's what this speech represented. By the way, I don't think that anybody who heard it immediately thought Enoch Powell, because with the exception of a few sort of hardcore actual racists, most people haven't studied the Enoch Powell Rivers of Blood speech word by word and recognised that phrase. And so, as I say, it was a kind of poetic phrase. He's now actually linked that phrase to Enoch Powell, and therefore linked a speech about the government's commitment to taking on the issue of mass migration to Enoch Powell, which basically means that he is saying that if you're concerned about mass migration, immigration, that you are swimming around in the Enoch Powell kind of waters. And that's very dangerous for those of us who are trying to seriously raise the issue. I think as well, I don't know about you, but it's the gaslighting that does my head in. I mean, you know that film, the Hitchcock film, I think 1940 or whatever, where a woman is made to feel as though she's going berserk or mad because her husband is dimming the lights all the time and, you know, turning the gas lights down. But I mean, how many times does this Prime Minister look us in the face and say, I absolutely, adamantly, we are not going to have a national inquiry on grooming gangs because we don't need to. And anyone who says so is hanging on the coattails of the far right. And then, and carries on and carries on. all of the U-turns has been the same. We absolutely will not U-turn on the issue of welfare cuts. And then he breezes out as though he's always thought this and says, it's absolutely essential that we have a national inquiry on the grooming gangs. And he looks you in the eye, and all the ministers do this in the House of Lords to me, as though I haven't been the one saying that, and say, stop, what is wrong with you? We are now committed to. And I think that this speech is one of those ones in which they stuck with the speech, now they've moved away from it, and it's no wonder that people are tearing their hair out. And I do feel as though one of the problems with politics today, I've just been listening to your interview, by the way, which was an excellent interview about the whole burqa issue. I remember when Boris Johnson wrote an article in 2018 comparing the burqa to women wearing the burqa to letterboxes. I mean, it was a typical, if you remember, typical Boris Johnson, you know, kind of way with words, right? And the thing that was significant about his article, and it's very important, was he was defending the right of women to wear the burqa, but said he despised the burqa. But he was defending. Nobody read the article. They just reacted, right? And to his credit, he tried to stick with what he said. But politics became consumed in the impression. And it was the Labour government and the Labour in opposition who tried to say that if you even made any criticism of the burqa, never mind that he wasn't trying to ban it, that you were Islamophobic. Now those same people are in government. And when people have tried to destroy his speech on the basis that is he not pal, instead of him sticking with the principle and the content of it, he basically has betrayed his own beliefs. He's got no convictions. I don't believe
Absolutely. Someone who does have convictions, Baroness Claire Fox. It's been one of the hottest days of the year today, and my next guest has been making the most of the sunshine.
To do the thing that all of those women cannot do. Which one is to tell you to
That's feminist activist Kelly J. Keane in Speaker's Corner earlier today as part of her new campaign, Free Your Faces. I am joined now by Kelly herself. Amazing. Now, you say that was you earlier. We don't have definitive proof of that. Please tell us all about what Free Your Faces is about then.
So 4 weeks ago, I went to Speaker's Corner as usual. We do a free speech event for women, and can I just say, not a feminist. Happily, really, delightfully not a feminist. So we go to Speaker's Corner to allow women to speak about the things that they need to talk about, usually things that are quite unsayable. And for the last 7 years, that's very much been that women don't have male appendages. I don't know how much I can go into that, but we'll just leave it there.
Yeah, no, I found out in Thailand. So...
Didn't we all?
Yeah.
So I was at Speaker's Corner, and then two women were wearing the niqab, and I just, off the cuff, just said, free your faces, ladies, liberate yourselves, free your faces. And I thought that was quite a nice little clip, 7 seconds, put it onto Twitter, and it was shared. It was watched 24 million times within... like shorter than a space of a week. And what I found is that it'd gone quite crazy in Saudi Twitter and other countries across the Middle East. And then I started getting the most incredible stories from women all over the Middle East who saw this as some sort of hope that we were talking about it. And then I really felt that I couldn't not do something with these testimonies that are the most moving things I've read. And so I decided to do a niqab with the words free your face and go and wear it at Speaker's Corner and then take it off, because that's something that those women can't do.
Yeah. And also, you've given me a business idea of selling advertising space.
QR code would look amazing.
I mean, the irony, of course, is, compared to what you have been talking about over the last 7 years, is that the Middle East certainly know what a woman is.
Yes. They can't recognise one in the street often, though, because they can't see whether or not they're women. But yes, they know exactly who to erase.
Yeah, and this is what it is, to your mind. This is, I mean, because, of course, the argument for some people is that this is empowering. That's what some people do argue. It should be pointed out that there are Muslim countries that have very specifically banned this for this reason. But we had the former MP, on her first talk, she was talking about banning the niqab and got a very negative response, and, of course, accusations that come along of Islamophobia. And this is, I mean, the argument also goes on the other side, is that this is an issue for moderate Muslim women who want action taken on this, right?
Yeah. Well, look, I think we can say Islamophobia like transphobia, and we can all worry about accusations like that. And I just choose not to, because I see Muslim women as much of a human being as I am. And so I don't think they should have any lesser existence just because the country in which they live might want to shield their faces and erase them. And I think it's actually completely the opposite of Islamophobia. There is some sort of patronising thing that says, oh, well, those brown women in that country, well, you know, they have different cultures, but we're all human beings. And I think for those women, I can't tell you the level of articulate, moving, like incredibly intelligent testimonies I've received. And if I can just sort of elaborate on that. One of them said, I've not felt the sun on my face since I was 12. This is a woman in her 20s. I've not felt the sun on my face since I was 12. And my only memories are in these four walls of my house. And also what that veil represents is a life of servitude to their husbands or their fathers, their brothers. They just become sort of servants in their own lives. And then she said, in order to know what day it is, I have to look at the calendar because every day is the same. And she finished it off by saying that when my family go away, I go to the cafe. And then she used these words, which I just found so profoundly moving. It's the greatest adventure of my life to go to the cafe when her family is away. And I don't feel that I can then not do something with that. Like, who am I not to then keep promoting these voices and actually saying to these women, I will be a vehicle that you can use so you can tell the world exactly what it is like to live your life.
Yeah. What was the response today then? Because from the clips that I've seen, there seem to be some angry men, surprisingly.
Well, angry and obnoxious and irritating men, to be fair.
I mean, I've got to put my hand up there.
Yeah, you just shouldn't have come. So there were some of those, but my husband just showed me, we were just watching back there, and there were some women like wearing a hijab, and they were all they were quite bemused, and they found it quite sort of shocking in a smiley way. So, and I've also received some sort of responses on Twitter of women saying, I'm from Saudi, thank you so much. So what these women think in Saudi is that if we start embarrassing the king and various people in power in Saudi, if we embarrass them and say, oh, look what they do, they say the West is very powerful, and if we recognise that it's an absolute disgrace, it might be not that they will just say it's not compulsory, but they will actively tell men that they are not allowed to subject their wives and daughters to this practice.
Absolutely. I hope so. Of course, the sad thing is that in this country, there are people who encourage it, and for the people who do stand up against it, it's again accused of bigotry.
Yeah, of course. Look, this is not about... there's lots of views I have about religious dress and how I feel women are oppressed by it, but this is a particular thing.
Yeah, covering her hair is different from literally covering her entire face.
100%. And it not only prevents those women from interacting, but it prevents us from interacting with those women as well. And I think it's quite a treacherous thing for any woman to choose to wear something that is such an oppressive garment and is used to totally erase those women. And I've been looking at erasure for the last 7 years when it comes to our language, but these women are just not even, they're just not seen at all. And I would say to all women who don't wear the niqab, just a little kindness would be nice. Next time you see someone in a niqab, just throw her a smile. Just treat her like you know she's a human being and that she's behind the veil and that you recognise her as a woman, and let's stop maybe letting it be the barrier that I think it seeks to be.
Well, I think we can all agree with that. Well, you may say that you're not a feminist, but you're still standing up for women, which is wonderful to see. Thank you so much for joining us. Kelly J. Keane.